The twin suns of Varnak Prime burned high in the alien sky. The planet was beautiful. Giant purple trees covered the mountains, and blue rivers glowed under the sunlight. But beneath the beauty, the world was full of sadness. For 300 years, the alien races of Shirak and Valari had been fighting a brutal civil war. Millions had died. Cities were turned into dust. Families were torn apart. No peace had come. Not even the Galactic Council could stop the war. They tried sending ships, ambassadors, and messages, but both sides refused to listen. The hatred between them was too deep. But then, something strange happened. A small human ship arrived in orbit. It was not a warship. It had no weapons. It flew alone. Inside was a man named Elias Grant, a peace envoy from Earth. He was tall, with calm eyes and a soft voice. He wore no armor, only a simple gray uniform. His ship sent one message to both factions. I come from Earth. I bring no weapons. I ask for a chance to speak to both your leaders. The alien leaders were confused. The Jarok were strong and proud warriors, covered in bone-like armor and giant horns. The Valari were tall, with glowing eyes and minds that could move objects. Both races had never seen a human up close. Earth was far and quiet. A small, strange planet. Why would a human come here? Asked Warlord Kraith of the Jarok. His voice shook the walls. He's either very foolish, said Queen Solara. Of the Velarior, he has nothing left to lose. After some debate, both sides agreed, not because they trusted the human, but because they were curious. They wanted to hear what this weak, soft-skinned creature would say. So, Lias was brought to the neutral court, a floating city above a giant lake that neither side claimed. It was old and damaged, but still safe for talks. When Elias stepped out of his ship, the alien court watched in silence. There were gasps, whispers, even laughter. Some guards kept their weapons close. He has no armor, one alien muttered. His bones will break in a strong wind, another chuckled. But Elias only smiled and bowed. Thank you for allowing me here. I bring only words, not war. Da! First day, no one spoke to him. The alien lords sat on their thrones, cold and silent. But Elias waited, patient like stone. The second day, Elias told a story, a human story.
How once
Earth was at war with itself. Two powerful nations fought. For years, cities burned, children cried. But one day, a man from a small village walked into both camps. He had nothing, no army, no fame, no power. But he listened. And because he listened, they stopped fighting. Some aliens scoffed. Others listened quietly. On the third day, Elias asked a question. What started your war? The room went quiet. Kraith growled. They killed our children. Solara's eyes glowed brighter. They destroyed our temples. Then they started shouting at each other. The court nearly broke into a fight. Elias raised his hand and spoke softly. I understand your pain, but I must ask. Who told you the other side did these things? The room fell silent again. Elias continued. Was it your own eyes? Or whispers from someone else? Queen Solara narrowed her eyes. What are you suggesting, human? I'm suggesting that someone wants you to keep fighting. Someone who gains power while you lose. That night, Elias stayed in his small chamber. No bed, only a mat and a bag of dried food. He wrote notes, read old alien history, and listened to ancient war songs. He wanted to understand, not command. By the fifth day, he was allowed to meet Kraith and see Laradash alone. First he sat with the warlord. Kraith was huge, with scarred skin and red eyes. You think I can just forgive them? Said Elias shook. His head no. But I think you can stop more of your people from dying. Next, he sat with the queen. She was cold and sharp. Words are wind, human. Wind cannot stop blood, Elias replied, but it can dry the tears. They did not answer him directly, but something had changed. The alien leaders began talking again, not just with Elias, but with each other. Elias asked for records, reports. In histories, he worked with alien scholars. searched for a pattern, for something hidden in the war, and he found it. It started small. Hidden messages, secret supply routes, strange weapons that came from neither side. Slowly, a name came up again and again. The Netheri brokers. They were traders from a distant system, sold fuel, tech, and weapons to anyone. Quiet, rich, and invisible. And they had been giving both Xeroc and Valari weapons for centuries. Elias brought the evidence to the court. "Look," he said, "you're not enemies by fate. You're victims. Someone made you fight." At first, many refused to believe, but the data was real. Secret deals, hidden money trails, pattern of lies. Some aliens in the court stood up in anger. Some broke down in tears. Queen Solara whispered, "All this time, we were their puppets." Warlord Kraith roared, "We were fools." Elias did not smile. He only said, "Now you know the truth. What you do next is your choice." That day the war did not end, but something important began, for the first time in centuries. Both sides agreed on one thing: the human had spoken truth, and for the first time, no longer felt impossible. The great hall of the neutral court was no longer filled with shouting or threats. Now, it was filled with whispers, soft, unsure, but curious. For the first time in centuries, both the Xeroc warlords and the Valari nobles were thinking instead of fighting, and in the middle of it all stood one human Elias Grant. He did not wear armor, he did not carry a weapon. But his words had pierced deeper than any blade. He had uncovered a hidden enemy, the Netheri brokers. A neutral race who had secretly sold weapons to both sides, keeping the war alive so they could profit from destruction. But words alone were not enough. Proof was needed, and Elias knew this, so he began his next task, gathering the evidence. With help from a small team of neutral scholars and translators, Elias spent his days studying cargo records, supply chains, and battlefield remains. At night, he reviewed old war reports and spoke to retired soldiers from both sides. He discovered that Nethari-made weapons were found in both Xeroc and Valari camps. Sometimes they carried the same serial numbers. Sometimes they were delivered just hours apart, one to the Xeroc, the other to the Valari. That was not a coincidence. It was a pattern. Elias shared his findings with Queen Solara and Warlord Kraith separately. At first they were suspicious. "You think I cannot tell where a weapon comes from?" Kraith growled. "I do not doubt your eyes," Elias said softly. "But even the sharpest eye can be fooled if the enemy hides behind a mask." Queen Solara was more quiet but no less proud. "You asked me to believe we were nothing more than puppets?" Elias nodded. "Yes, puppets. But now you hold the strings." For a moment neither leader spoke. Then, for the first time in 3 centuries, Queen Solara and Warlord Kraith agreed to meet each other face to face. The court held its breath. Inside, a long oval room surrounded by glowing pillars, the 2 leaders sat across from each other. Elias stood between them. No guards, no weapons, only truth. Elias placed a hologram projector on the table and pressed a button. A recording played. A secret meeting between a Netheri broker and a Xeroc captain. Double the shipment next cycle. "Tell the Valari there. Enemies are building planet busters. Tell the Xeroc the same." The alien captain laughed in the video. "They'll kill each other for years." Elias paused the recording. Then he played another. This time, it showed a Valari general accepting credits from a Netheri agent. "We'll deliver the new plasma blades to both sides. Tell them it's exclusive tech." Queen Solara clenched her fist. Her glowing eyes dimmed. "They lied too." "Us," she whispered. Warlord Kraith slammed his fist on the table. "They made fools of us all." Elias looked at them both. "You were never fools. You were proud. You were strong. That's why the Nethari used you. But now you can end it." The Queen and the Warlord looked at each other. For a moment neither spoke. Then Solara said, "We call for a ceasefire." Kraith nodded. 3 cycles, no attacks, no raids. It wasn't peace. But it was a start in the days that followed. The news spread fast. The war was pausing. The Xeroc warriors stood down. The Valari ships returned to dock. Families cried, hugged, and waited. No one knew what would happen next. The Galactic Council, shocked by the sudden change, sent observers. To Varnak Prime, some suspected a trap. Others hoped it was real, but the truth was clear. A human had done what they could not. Elias became the center of attention. Reporters tried to speak to him. Diplomats asked for interviews. Statues of him were even built in some cities, but Elias didn't care about fame. He continued his work. The next goal was justice. With Kraith and Solara's support, Elias requested a summit with the Nethari brokers. It would be held in the same neutral court, and the brokers would be asked to explain their actions in front of everyone. The Nethari agreed, but they were not afraid. Their leader, Broker Velm, arrived with a wide smile and a tall staff made of golden metal. He walked like a king, confident and calm. "You accuse us?" he said, his voice smooth like oil. "We are just traders. You're bought from us freely." Elias nodded. "Yes, but you lied. You sold the same story to both sides. You fed the fire." Velm waved his hand. "War is good business. Peace." Boring. Gasps filled the room. Warlord Kraith growled. Queen Solara's eyes burned brighter than before. Velm laughed. "You think anyone will punish us? We own half the council." Elias stepped forward. "No, you don't own truth." He pressed a button on his wrist. A new recording played. This time, it showed Velm himself years ago, saying, "If the war ends, we lose everything. Keep them angry. Keep them blind." The court fell silent. Even the Nethari guards looked at each other in fear. Broker Velna's smile faded. "Where did you get that?" he hissed. Elias calmly replied, "From someone who used to work for you, and who finally wanted peace." Warlord Kraith stood. "You will answer for this," Queen Solara added, "and so will your agents." Velm tried to leave, but the council guards blocked his path. The Nethari delegation was arrested on the spot. Their ships were searched. Their accounts were frozen. The galaxy watched in shock, and the people of Varnak Prime cheered for the first time in generations. That night, Elias stood alone on a balcony, watching the twin suns set behind the silver mountains. The sky turned orange and gold. Birds sang. The rivers shimmered. A young alien child walked up to him. "Are you a king?" she asked. Elias smiled. "No, I'm just a man who wanted the hurting to stop. Will the war be over now?" "I hope so," he said gently. Behind him, both Warlord Kraith and Queen Solara stood quietly. "You have changed everything," Kraith said. Lara nodded. "The war may be ending, Elias, but your journey is just beginning." And in the distance, the bells of the court rang not for battle, but for peace. The news of the ceasefire spread across every part of Varnak Prime like a wave of fresh air. For the first time in hundreds of years, no weapons were fired. No airships flew in anger. No children hid underground. The war had stopped, at least. For now, Elias Grant, the human envoy, had done the impossible. He had made two ancient enemies, the Jarok clans and the Valari Dominion pause. Listen and see the real enemy behind the war. The Nethari brokers, the greedy traders who fed. The war from both sides for profit. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. Stopping a war was one thing. Ending it forever was something much harder. In the center of the neutral court, both rulers now met daily Warlord Kraith, with his bone-like armor and deep voice, and Queen Solara, tall, wise, and glowing like a star. With Elias between them, they planned the next steps. They had proof of the Nethari's crimes. The galaxy had seen the recordings. Broker Velm and his agents were now prisoners, facing a council trial. But peace was not built in a day. Many Jarok warriors still hated the Valari, and many Valari citizens still remembered lost family from Jarok attacks. Their pain was real. Their wounds were deep. Elias sat with soldiers, farmers, teachers, and even orphans. He listened to their stories. He never told them to forget. He only said, "You cannot erase the past, but you can choose what your children will remember." These words spread across the planet. Some wrote them on walls, some sang them in songs. Still, danger remained. Late one night, Elias was working in the council library when a young Shirok messenger rushed in. "Human," he cried. "Something's wrong in the southern colonies." Elias followed him to the court hall, where Queen Solara was already waiting. Her face cold and serious. A large screen showed reports of Alari, village burned. Survivors claimed Jarok attackers had done it. Kraith arrived moments later, furious. "This is a lie. I ordered all raids to stop."
Oh.
Solara's voice was sharp.
"All my people are dead."
Elias stepped between them. "Please, we need the truth first." He requested the council to send neutral observers to the site. It was risky, but both leaders agreed. 3 days later, the observers returned with something shocking. The attackers were neither Jarok nor Velari. They were disguised. Their weapons were stolen. But their blood was Netheri. Some Netheri agents had escaped arrest. Now they were trying to restart the war by creating new attacks. Warlord Kraith roared, "Cowards! They wear our faces to bring fire." Solara nodded. "This cannot go unpunished."
"No."
But Elias raised his voice. "No. If you strike now, the war will return. You must finish this the right way." He had a plan. Elias suggested a final Samita meeting between both armies, both leaders and all council members. There the truth would be shown to everyone, not in secret, not in shadow, but in the open. Warlord Kraith and Queen Solara agreed. They knew this was the only way forward. The summit was to be held in Starfield Arena, a massive circle-shaped hall built into the mountains of Varnock Prime. It was once used for battle games, now reshaped for peace. Thousands came warriors, diplomats, civilians, and even former enemies. Elias stood in the center of the arena. Behind him stood both rulers. Around him sat people who had once tried to kill each other. He cleared his throat and began, "I am not a soldier. I am not from this world. But I came here to stop the blood. You all know the truth now. You know who fed your hate. The Nethari. Told you lies and made your pain deeper. But you believed those lies because your pain was real." He paused, looking around. "I do not ask you to forget. I ask you to choose. Do you want more graves, or do you want gardens?" The crowd was silent. His voice echoed across the arena. Then Queen Solara stepped forward. "My people are tired. My children are tired. I choose gardens." Next, Warlord Kraith walked beside her. "My people have buried too many sons. I choose peace." The crowd murmured, a few clapped, then more. Then thousands stood and cheered. It had happened. The war was truly over. The next few days were full of change. Old checkpoints were removed. Soldiers helped rebuild towns instead of tearing them down. Mixed. Schools were opened where Jarok and Velari children learned together. A shared flag was designed, showing to hands one scaled. One glowing reaching toward a single star, but not everyone was happy. Some old generals hated the idea of peace. Some merchants had made fortunes from war. One former Velari commander, Thaler Jin, began spreading angry messages, calling peace a weak dream. Elias went to speak with him personally. "You hate peace because you have nothing else," Elias said calmly. Thaler Jin sneered. "You're just a soft human. You don't understand strength." Elias looked him in the eye. "Strength is not killing. Strength is knowing when to stop." Jin didn't answer, but days later he disappeared. Rumors said he fled to the outer stars. Back in the neutral court, the Galactic Council held a special ceremony. They wanted to honor Elias. He stood in front of leaders from 100 worlds. A Velari priest placed a glowing crystal on his chest. Aldrak Elder gave him a bone-carved medallion. Both were symbols of peace and respect. But Elias looked uncomfortable. "I thank you," he said. "But peace does not belong to one man. It belongs to everyone who chooses it." Later that night, Queen Solara met Elias alone. "You gave us hope," she said. "We owe you more than words." Elias shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just protect what we've built." She smiled. "You're too humble. You changed the course of history." But Elias only looked out the window at the stars. There's still more to do, he whispered. The war was over. But the journey was not, and deep inside the Xerox Palace, King Kraith was preparing something, a gift that would soon surprise the entire court and the whole galaxy. The air in the neutral court was thick with anticipation. Word had spread quickly after centuries of endless war, after endless pain and loss. A peace treaty was ready to be signed. The two greatest enemies, Warlord Kraith of the Xerox and Queen Solera of the Valeri, would come together, not as enemies, but as partners in peace. And at the heart of this moment was the human who had made it possible, Elias Grant. The Grand Hall was filled with representatives from across the galaxy, members of the Galactic Council, diplomats from distant worlds, and even curious citizens from Varnock. Prime had gathered to witness history. Elias stood between Kraith and Solara. His simple gray uniform stood out among the richly decorated robes of the alien leaders. Yet, in this moment, it was his calm presence that brought hope. Today, Elias began, we mark a new chapter for Varnock Prime, a chapter where swords will be laid down and hands will be joined. My God, where the wounds of the past will be healed, not deepened, the crowd murmured, some skeptics still doubting. But many eyes shone with hope. The two leaders took their seats opposite each other. The Treaty of Varnock spread before them. It was a long document, but its message was simple. Cease all hostilities. Dismantle war machines and work together for a peaceful future. With steady hands, Queen Solera signed first, her glowing eyes soft with relief. Warlord Kraith followed, his scarred hand shaking slightly, but firm. The hall erupted in applause. Cheers echoed off the stone walls, and tears flowed freely from many eyes. Elias smiled quietly. This was the moment he had hoped for. After the ceremony, a grand feast was held in the palace gardens. Flowers bloomed under the twin suns, and music filled the air. Aliens from both sides mingled, sharing stories and laughter. It was a rare sight, a true peace celebration. Elias sat beside Queen Solara and Warlord Kraith. The leaders spoke not of war, but of dreams, plans to rebuild, to grow, to learn from each other. But then a hush fell over the crowd as King Kraith entered. He was older and taller than Warlord Kraith, with a long white beard braided with silver rings. His eyes were sharp but kind. The court fell silent. King Kraith walked slowly toward Elias. Then, in a surprising gesture, he knelt before the human. The entire room gasped. The king's voice was deep but respectful. Elias Grant, human of Earth, you have done what none of us could. You ended our war. He paused, looking around. For this, I offer you a gift no outsider has ever received. He reached into a velvet box and pulled out a small shining crystal. It glowed with a light that seemed to come from the heart of the planet itself. This is the heart of Varnock. It is our most sacred treasure. It symbolizes life, unity, and strength. Elias stared, speechless. King Kraith continued, by accepting this, you become part of our history. You become family. The queen nodded, her eyes glistening. And you carry the trust of both our peoples. Elias bowed his head deeply. I'm honored, but I do not carry this alone. It belongs to all who choose peace. The king smiled, then carry it with pride. The gift was more than a crystal. It was a promise, a symbol that humanity was now tied forever to the fate of Varnock. Prime news of the ceremony spread quickly across the galaxy.
How many were shocked?
Humans were seen as simple, fragile beings. Yet here was a man who had ended a war and earned the respect of alien kings. For the first time, Earth was no longer just a quiet planet in the backwater of space. It was a player in the galaxies. Great story. Days later, Elias received a private message from the Galactic Council. They invited him to become an official ambassador of peace. It was a new title created, just for him. Elias accepted with humility. I am not a hero, he said. I am just a man who believes in peace. But he knew the road ahead would be long. Many worlds were still at war, Many hearts were still full of hate. Still, the victory on Varnak Prime was proof that peace was possible. Back on Varnak Prime, the work of rebuilding began. Former soldiers from both sides worked together. Old weapons were melted down and turned into tools and machines for farming and building. Children of Sherok and Sherok Valari played together. In the streets, mixed schools taught their languages, history, and culture, and in the neutral court, Elias stood often, watching the new world grow. Yet in quiet moments, Elias wondered what other secrets the galaxy held.
Oh,
The Nethari brokers were only one shadow. What other hidden enemies might still work in silence? His mission was not over. But whatever came next, Elias knew one thing for sure. A human's voice could change the stars. The grand hall of the neutral court was silent, but the tension in the air was thick. Everyone waited, their eyes fixed on the tall figure who had just entered King Kraith, ruler of the mighty Jarok. His armor gleamed under the bright lights. But it was his eyes that held the most power. They were not eyes of war, but of deep respect and decision. At the center of the hall stood Elias Grant, the human who had ended the centuries-long civil war. Though he was just a simple man from Earth, in that moment he was the most important person in the galaxy. The court had heard rumors about what the king planned to give Elias. Whispers flew like fire among the alien nobles and dignitaries. Would it be a weapon? A planet? A title? No one knew for sure. King Kraith moved slowly toward Elias, carrying a small box wrapped in fine cloth. The room held its breath as the king knelt before the human. With a steady voice, the king spoke. Elias, Grant, human of Earth, you have brought peace where there was only war. You have shown strength not with weapons, but with heart and mind. For this, I offer you something no outsider has ever received. He opened the box. Inside was a simple, shining ring, crafted from the rarest metals of Varnak Prime and glowing faintly with an inner light. This ring, the king said, is the circle of unity. It binds not only to people, but to peoples. I offer you my daughter's hand in marriage, as a symbol of trust, alliance, and family. A gasp echoed through the hall. Alien nobles looked at each other in shock. The Valari Queen's eyes widened in surprise, but then softened in approval. Elias stood still. His mind raced. He was honored, but also aware of the weight of such an offer. Marriage in Jirok culture was sacred, united not just individuals, but entire clans. He looked to the king and then to the queen. Your Majesty, Elias said gently, I am deeply honored by your trust, but I am a stranger to your customs. And your people, I cannot accept this gift lightly. King Kraith smiled kindly. It is not just a gift, it is a bond. It shows that Earth is now part of Varnak Prime's story. The Valari Queen stepped forward. Elias, your choice will change history. Not just for us, but for the whole galaxy. Elias thought deeply. He knew accepting would bring peace, trust, and alliance. But it was also a lifelong commitment, and his heart belonged to Earth. Finally, he spoke with calm certainty. I cannot accept marriage now, but I accept the responsibility of friendship and peace between our peoples. I accept the honor of being your ally, your friend, and your peace-bearer. The king nodded in respect, and I give you this ring not to bind you, but to remind you that you carry the hopes of many. Elias accepted the ring with gratitude. The court burst into applause. In the days that followed, the circle of unity became a symbol across the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as weak or distant. Respected, and welcomed. Elias continued his work as the ambassador of peace. He traveled between worlds, helping others find hope where there was despair, and on Varnak Prime, the peace held. Old enemies worked side by side. New friendships were born. The scars of war slowly healed. One evening, as Elias walked through a city where Jarok and Valari children played together, looked up at the stars, he thought of Earth, his home, and smiled. He had come to a strange world and changed history. He had ended a war with words, trust, and courage. and the galaxy would never forget.